We're in the corn and we're playing ChatGPT Roulette. By the way, this is a VR video, so if you have a VR headset, you should watch this video with that. If you don't have a VR headset, well, you can still watch, but you're not getting the full immersive experience of the corn. So let's get started. Play ChatGPT Roulette. We're having reception problems, I think. Cell phone service isn't great here. Okay, so there's number 8 here is pivotal encounters, people I met who changed my perspective. Interesting. So many of these topics, I'd have to think about them. I have things to say, but on the spur of the moment, and that's what ChatGPT Roulette is all about, you have to make a decision and you have to go with it. So number 8 says pivotal encounters, people I met who changed my perspective. So I think this topic is going to lead somewhere a bit different, but let's just see where it goes. So this is going to sound cliche, but I think one of the people I met who had a big impact on me was my grandfather, my paternal grandfather. He lived to be 94. He was born in 1901 and he died in 1995. I grew up on actually this farm where this corn is growing. I grew up on this farm, and my grandfather, my father's father, had a farm not far from here, just right over there. And he was always in my life. So I grew up on this farm. He was always there. We always saw him, we saw him all the time. I certainly remember him at Thanksgiving dinner and Christmas dinner and at many, many times. And he had a large impact on me. He was a wealth of wisdom, as are a lot of people who are elderly. Not everyone, but he was certainly one of those people who had a wealth of wisdom. And he had his quirks as well, but one of the things, here's where the topic diverges a little bit. One of the things with my grandfather that I always thought about is I always wondered what it was like to be a teenager, around 1915. It must have been scary because he would have been turning 16 years old in 1917, and would he have been going off to war? Apparently not, because I think he wanted to stay in school, so I'm not sure if that got you off the hook. But anyway, I think of those days, like his life as a teenager, and then his life in the roaring 20s. What was that like? And these things, although I guess the same would apply to the Depression. What was it like living through the Depression, and then the Second World War, and then the 50s, the boom time in the 50s and 60s. So these times, we know a lot about these times, and we see pictures and old movies of these periods, and we know they existed, we know what they're like, but they somehow don't seem real. But for the people living in those periods, life would have been just as real as our lives are to us. And for some reason, I find that fascinating, and I think about that. I think about, imagine if I could be dropped in the 1920s, dropped on this farm in the 1920s. So my family obviously wasn't here in the 1920s, but what would it have been like here? What would my hometown have been like? I can see pictures of it, but what would it have actually felt like? What would it actually have felt like? Because it would have been just as real as my life is today, just as real for those people. Obviously, we wouldn't have had technology. The cars they drove would have been dramatically different. Life would have been dramatically different, but just as real. If you have thoughts about this topic, please leave me comments, and please join me again for another episode of ChatGPT Roulette in the future.